It's about something that may or may not be on your radar up north, a so-called super pig invasion. And honestly, it is exactly like what it sounds like. These huge, very destructive feral pigs that have been bred in Canada.
Deep in the frozen forests of northern Saskatchewan, a trapper and his son were checking their line on the shore of Montreal Lake when they spotted something that should not exist this far north. What they shot that day sent shockwaves through the scientific community and forced researchers to admit a terrifying truth. The creatures Canada has been trying to kill for over 40 years are winning, and the footage from recent operations is showing us exactly why. A sighting that broke the map. In the early days of March in 2025, a man named Jarrett Nelson was doing what his family had done for generations. He was walking his trap line along the northwestern shore of Montreal Lake, deep in Cree territory, roughly 285 kilometers north of Saskatoon. His son Cohen was with him that morning, and the frozen ground still held the stiffness of winter. Then they saw the tracks. Deep, wide prints cutting through the snow, followed by massive rooting patches along the shoreline, stretching all the way toward Two Forks River. When they finally spotted the animal responsible, Cohen raised his rifle and took the shot. What dropped into the snow was not supposed to be there. It was a wild boar, solid and thick with winter fat, its hides scarred from fights and cold. This was boreal forest country, the kind of landscape where even moose struggle in deep winter. And yet here was a species that scientists had spent decades insisting could never survive this far north. Word traveled fast. Dr. Ryan Brook from the University of Saskatchewan packed his equipment and drove straight to the community. He has studied these animals longer than anyone in the country, and when he saw the location pin on the map, his reaction was public and unfiltered. He called the finding alarming and shocking, and he described what was happening as a tsunami of wild pigs moving from the south further and further north every single year. Chief Tammy Cook Searson of the Lachlan Ronge Indian Band raised immediate concerns about the woodland caribou in the area, and her Lands and Resources team began drafting a Treaty Rights Protection Fund proposal within days. Around the same time, 4 more wild pigs were reported on the northern outskirts of Prince Albert. Barry Carriere of the Northern Saskatchewan Trappers Association began sounding the alarm to anyone who would listen. The Saskatchewan Crop Insurance Corporation tried to soften the moment by calling it a rare occurrence, but the researchers who have been tracking these animals for 15 years were already bracing for what would come next because they knew something the public did not know yet. The experiment that escaped. To understand why Canada is now losing this fight, you have to go back to the 1980s, when the entire country had exactly 0 wild pigs of any kind roaming free. In that decade, Canadian agriculture was under pressure to diversify beyond cows and wheat, and the federal government encouraged farmers to try exotic livestock. Emu ranches appeared, elk farms opened, and somebody had the bright idea to import Eurasian wild boar from northern Europe to put exotic meat on the tables of fancy restaurants. The boars they brought over came from lineages whose native range stretched all the way into Siberia at 61 degrees north latitude. Farmers then made a fateful decision. They crossbred those Eurasian boars with cold, hardy domestic breeds like the Tamworth, hoping to produce larger animals that grew faster and had bigger litters. The experiment worked too well. The hybrids they created were bigger, tougher, more reproductively aggressive, and more adaptable than either parent species on its own. Then came the collapse. In the year 2001, the market for wild boar meat hit its peak and then fell apart almost overnight. Restaurants were not ordering enough, the animals grew slower than regular pigs, and the farmers were losing money on every single feed bag. Dr. Brook describes what happened next in stark terms. He says a lot of them escaped through broken fences, and a lot of other farmers simply cut the wires and walked away from their herds, turning an expensive problem loose on the Canadian landscape. A rancher in southeast Saskatchewan named Bob Brickley, who now chairs the Moose Mountain Wild Boar Eradication Committee, estimates that even today about 2% of captive boars leak into the wild every year. Ontario saw the warning signs early when 24 people got sick with trichinella from farmed boar meat in Dufferin County in 1993. But nobody connected the dots on what was happening in the wild. By the time anyone in government tried to act, the pigs had already colonized 3 major escape zones. They settled into Moose Mountain Provincial Park in Saskatchewan, flooded Woodlands County in Alberta, and they took over Spruce Woods Provincial Park in Manitoba. When the Canadian Wild Pig Research Project finally started capturing footage of these animals in their natural behavior, the results were nothing like what scientists had predicted. What the cameras are actually showing. The first bombshell was what the team started calling pigloos. In the depths of a prairie winter, when temperatures drop below -30 degrees, these pigs do something no textbook said they could do. They dig subnivean burrows beneath deep snow, with snow roofs 1 to 2 feet thick that trap their body heat and turn their dens into natural igloos. Some of them go even further. They march into cattail stands, mow the stalks down with their teeth, pile the cattails into massive mounds, and burrow inside the pile while fresh snow accumulates on top as a second insulating layer. Dr. Brook has a trick he uses to find these nests in the field. He tells researchers that if you walk the wetlands early on a cold morning, you can actually see steam pouring out the top of the pigloos as the sleeping sounder breathes inside. That one visual alone changed everything scientists thought they knew about the limits of pig survival. The size of these animals is the next shock. Dr. Brook and his team captured and euthanized a pregnant sow in east-central Saskatchewan that weighed 290 kilograms. That is 638 pounds of solid, carnivorous, intelligent animal, and she was pregnant with another litter. The diet footage is where things turn genuinely disturbing. Trail cameras have recorded these pigs gobbling up goslings and ducklings by the hundreds every spring. They have been filmed taking down adult white-tailed deer. They eat frogs, salamanders, ground-nesting bird eggs, acorns, and anything else that cannot move faster than they can. The Saskatchewan Wildlife Federation released a photograph taken by Daryl Crabb that went viral across the prairies, showing a wild hog running across an open field with a white-tailed deer fawn hanging from its jaws. Crabb summed up what the research confirms, saying that when a sounder of pigs moves into an area, everything else moves out, and anything that nests on the ground simply disappears. Forest patches with wild pigs hold 26% fewer mammal and bird species than comparable patches without them. Native animals, including deer, squirrels, and songbirds, are shifting their entire activity patterns just to avoid wild pigs. Dr. Brook has admitted in interviews that one member of his own research team was seriously injured during fieldwork with these animals, and he reminded listeners that wild pigs have killed people in other parts of the world, including a 59-year-old woman named Christine Rollins in Texas in 2019. Every prairie province has now built an eradication program, and the footage coming out of those operations tells a story that is equal parts hope and frustration. The eradication machine and its failures. The Saskatchewan Crop Insurance Corporation runs the oldest program, and their hotline asks residents to call 1-833-PIG-SPOT. They operate 25 traps across the province, including 10 Jaeger Pro cellular systems built in Fortson, Georgia, that text a trapper when pigs walk into a corral. One operation near Melfort in 2021 captured an entire 12-pig sounder in a single drop. The state-of-the-art approach is called whole sounder trapping, and the science behind it is simple. Conventional trapping methods capture only 49% of a local population before the survivors get wise and scatter. Whole sounder traps, with their cellular triggers and patient baiting, capture 88% in a single closure. Dale Nouse, who manages strategic operations for the Saskatchewan program, explained on the record that pigs are sensitive animals who can sense when something has changed, so remotely triggered gates let trappers stay far away from the bait site until the entire family is inside. Alberta tried a different approach and learned an expensive lesson. From April of 2022 through March of 2024, the province offered $75 per pair of wild boar ears as a bounty to any hunter or trapper who brought them in. Only 4 counties signed on to participate, and the final tally from those 2 years was 0. Not a single bounty was ever paid out. Researchers had warned this would happen because hunting scattered sounders educates the survivors, making them nocturnal, cautious, and almost impossible to trap afterwards. The trapping program that replaced the bounty actually works. Alberta removed 380 wild boars between 2018 and 2024, then took 144 more in 2024 alone, and another 108 in 2025. 77 of those came out of a single northwest Alberta county. In August of 2025, the province hired 5 professional trappers as direct ministry employees with sustainable funding, and Hannah McKenzie, the wild boar specialist, confirmed that the program is going full steam into 2026. Manitoba launched Squeal on Pigs Manitoba on the 9th of May in 2022, and the program runs on the reporting line 1833 Spot Pig. Dr. Wayne Lees coordinates the operation, and his field operations manager, Devin Bayette, has been trapping since he started as a volunteer in 2018. The results have climbed sharply from 122 pigs in 2022 to 127 in 2023 to 204 pigs removed in 2024. The federal and provincial governments announced a fresh $2.6 million in funding on the 23rd of April in 2024 to keep the program running through 2028. The border, the virus, and the nightmare scenario. North of the 49th parallel, an ecological problem is turning into an international emergency, and the tip of the spear is a woman named Maggie Nutter. She is a 4th-generation rancher near Sweetgrass, Montana, and her property sits directly on the border. The only thing separating her cattle from Saskatchewan is an old barbed wire fence that she personally repairs every summer. In interviews with CBS News and local Montana television, she has been blunt about what is coming. She told viewers that this is going to be a huge issue and that the damage already done by feral pigs in the American South pales next to what she sees happening in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Dr. Brooke has documented wild pigs on both sides of the Canada-North Dakota border using aerial surveys. A Manitoba sighting was logged within 18 miles of Minnesota. Photos from 2018 placed Canadian pigs within 5 miles of the Montana border. Beth Carlson, who serves as Deputy State Veterinarian for North Dakota, has confirmed on the record that her office receives occasional reports of feral swine, and that in some cases they do appear to have traveled down from Canada. Montana has taken the threat more seriously than anyone else. Since 2015, state law has prohibited transporting, possessing, or hunting feral swine inside state lines with a $2,000 minimum fine. And Dr. Brooke says Montana has been the most serious about keeping wild pigs out. The virus everyone is watching is African swine fever. Canada runs a pork industry worth $24 billion a year, supporting roughly 100,000 jobs and exporting 1.4 million tons of pork annually to 77 countries. A wild pig population carrying African swine fever would detonate that economy overnight. A modeling published in 2024 projects that an outbreak would cause more than $3.6 billion in economic damage, with 14 to 21 million animals facing welfare slaughter. On the 7th of March in 2025, the federal government committed up to $567 million to support hog producers if that nightmare ever arrives. African swine fever is only one item on a long menu. Wild pigs can carry up to 89 transmissible diseases, including pseudorabies, classical swine fever, swine brucellosis, porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, porcine epidemic diarrhea, bovine tuberculosis, trichinellosis, leptospirosis, E. coli, salmonella, toxoplasmosis, and hepatitis E. Ashkim and Brooke documented 6,000 square kilometers of overlap between wild pig range and bovine tuberculosis zones, and 156,000 square kilometers of overlap with chronic wasting disease zones. In July of 2024, Animal Health Canada expanded its national surveillance program called CanSpot ASF to begin sampling invasive wild pigs for the first time. Manitoba submitted 60 samples in its first year alone. The footage coming out of Canadian eradication operations in 2025 and 2026 looks more like military reconnaissance than wildlife management, and that is by design. The new tools fighting back. Alberta launched its wild boar at large detection project in the spring of 2024, combining thermal imaging drones with artificial intelligence machine learning across roughly 3,000 square kilometers of farmland and bush. The AI models trained on footage shared between Manitoba, Alberta, and the United States Department of Agriculture now achieve better than 75% detection accuracy. The project also uses what researchers call a spy pig, which is the same concept as the older Judas pig method. Scientists capture a sow, fit her with a GPS collar, release her, and wait for her to rejoin a sounder because wild pigs are obligate social animals. Dr. Mathieu Prouveau at the University of Calgary described the moment the thermal drone launched and located a spy pig within minutes, leading to a successful cull of the group days later. Environmental DNA testing is the other breakthrough. At the Canadian Wild Pig Summit, 2 held virtually on the 29th of April in 2025, a researcher named James Hood from Assiniboine College presented data showing that wild pig eDNA can now be detected from water samples below the standard detection threshold. Ontario provincial crews have deployed DJI Mavic and Matrice drones to support trapping operations, and a Travis McGee-led operation in Pickering in November of 2021 successfully captured all 14 wild boars in the target zone because the drones spotted them in heavy cover where ground crews could not. What scientists will not say on camera. There is one more piece that makes the Canadian situation different from anything the United States has dealt with, and it comes from the genetics. American feral hogs descend from animals brought over by Columbus in 1493 and by Hernando de Soto in Florida in 1539, with 400 years to settle into a southern climate. Canadian wild pigs were engineered on purpose to be bigger, tougher, and colder tolerant, because that is what farmers wanted in the 1980s. The home range of a Canadian wild pig averages 29 times larger than the global average for the species, meaning each animal travels further, eats more, and breeds across a wider territory than any pig anywhere else on Earth. The math of eradication is brutal. Research shows that even removing 65% of a wild pig population every single year will not shrink the total number, because the remaining survivors simply breed faster to compensate. Hunter success rates sit at 2 to 3%, which is why every serious researcher insists that recreational hunting makes the problem worse rather than better. Dr. Brook put it in terms nobody in government wants to quote back at the taxpayers. He said the country is 45 years too late, and that trying to eradicate wild pigs at this point is like trying to eradicate mosquitoes. He went further in an interview with NBC News, warning that Canada had 0 wild pigs in 2002 and now has thousands spread across the entire country, and that once they are firmly established, you will have them for 500 years. On the radio, he said Saskatchewan will have wild pigs for at least 1,000 years. Dr. Lees in Manitoba pushes back gently and insists eradication is still possible with enough time and pressure, but even he admits the window is closing fast. The pig shot at Montreal Lake in March of 2025 was not a rare occurrence. It was a preview of the boreal invasion that researchers have been warning about since 2019, and the footage from every trap, every drone, and every trail camera from here to the American border is now telling Canadians the same thing in a single, unbroken sentence. The pigs are already here, they are already winning, and nobody knows how to stop them anymore. So what do you think Canada should do now that the science says eradication may no longer be possible? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know whether you believe these super pigs will ever cross into the United States in serious numbers.